to all my zero people. I love you. Shit, here we go, man. We live. We live with it. All right, what's up, everybody, man? Welcome back. This is the special stream for my Patreon for July 11th, 2019. It's Thursday, and I'm so happy to have you back, man. We here. I'm gonna be streaming today. Oh, I have one viewer, man. Shout out to him. By the way, if you want to ask me questions, go to the chat on YouTube. There's like a chat there, so whatever you ask me, I'm gonna answer it right away. And I'm here, man. Shout out to all my patrons. I love you. Thank you so much for, not having me go to work and shit, so I can stay home and paint all day. I appreciate you. Okay, so today I'll be doing this style that I actually experimented last week, and I just wanted to kind of see if it's gonna work. And then I decided this week I'm gonna show you how I did it, right? So I'm gonna do another artwork. I'm gonna kind of start it. So this is kind of like the artwork that I did last week, right? This is my artwork, the one in the red. And it's really like the first time I tried to experiment with this kind of lo-fi style, the clouds and everything. It's actually from an artist that I saw on Instagram. Let me open this up. It's from this artist. I think her name is Moonvika something, and she has like these really simplified characters, and then she has these like really beautiful backgrounds. But I think they're photos. Like I can't really tell. I think this one is a really cool one because you can see the clouds in the background and then the little stars, and you can kind of see I try to copy it. And it has like these really heavy lines. I think it has something to do with the program that she's using. I don't remember what she was, but it was like something really basic. Like I always get fascinated when people say they use like basic programs, and I'm just here like learning Photoshop for fucking 10 years. But yeah, whatever works for you though. I don't know what she did here. Like she added a photo or something. Holy shit. And then I really like the idea with the subtitles. It just kind of gives you like a story or something. So first thing I saw on Instagram was this picture, right? Like these two pictures. And I was like, okay, I want to create something like that. So I constantly talk about, how you should steal from other artists and how you should, try to copy their style. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it more and how I go about doing that. So after I find, these artworks, I'm like, wow, this is really, this is beautiful. Like, how can I create something similar? And first thing, now that I have the inspiration, I'm looking for references, right? And I actually shared the reference on my Patreon last week. It was in the rewards. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it right now. But it's this reference that I have a whole folder just meant for fashion. So I'll really go about it, and I try to find like a similar pose that I think will fit kind of like this style. And I'll just find something, I don't know if I don't know where the exact reference is for this artwork, but let's say it's something similar to this, right? Like it's just a girl with some glasses and some hands. It's what we're gonna be doing today is this one. And when I find the reference, I really sit down and I kind of break it down to what exactly I'm gonna take away from this reference. Because the thing is that you can't really use the colors from the original reference. You kind of have to make up your own colors, and you kind of have to know what vibe you're going for. So with this piece, the only thing I knew is because I saw a girl kind of like touching on her hair. The only thing I knew was that I wanted like to have the purple sky and the red clouds, kind of like this. So if you watch the video on my Patreon, I have the whole time lapse of this artwork. The first thing I start with is the sky, right? And I don't have anything in the character. I just start with the sky. And let me show you the process, by the way. Let me show you the whole process because I want to explain something to you. Where is it? So this is pretty much the 4 steps that I go through. Actually, there's it's actually 5 steps. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's 5. So really, the first thing I do is kind of like this really rough sketch, where I just do like these rough lines, and I'm trying to get the gesture. And this is what we're gonna be doing in these live streams. I'm going to show you how I go about doing that. So I get the reference, and and I really try to push it and make it more stylized. And I'm not really thinking about, clean lines or anything. I'm just thinking about proportions and the gesture. And then actually there's another layer on top where I kind of clean the lines, and then there's this third layer of line art, which is like really really clean. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like it's insanely clean. Like I don't really usually do that. I don't really, usually do this heavy line art because my usual style is more about, it's more about painting. It's actually more about fluidity and brush strokes. Like this is kind of like what I'm used to doing. It's more about, edges and kind of the colors mixing together. Oh, this is an ink sketch that I did, but this is what I'm used to, right? So I actually wanted to push myself to create something more, like a comic book. And this is what I did a couple of weeks ago, but it was more on like a white background. And this is what I always talk about to you guys, man. Like it's really important to kind of start from like zero and build it up to something, but like slowly. Because I feel like a lot of people just, they have a painterly style and they're like, yeah, let me just draw comic book style, and they get right into it. And it's like, nah, you gotta have to go about it slowly. So the first thing I did to kind of go about this comic book style is I started out with these two characters. I kind of did some heavy lines with some white background. You can kind of see how they're really similar to proportions and everything. And then I was like, you know what? Let me add a background. So now that I was kind of comfortable with doing these heavy lines in these colors, these basic colors, that's another thing that's really hard for me, is because I'm so used to, like shading everything. Like this is what I'm really comfortable with, which might be weird because, you might enjoy this artwork more than this one. But I've drawn like 500 of these, kind of similar, and this is the first one that I draw in this style. So it's really all about pushing yourself, in the opposite direction. And that's the thing, is that in this style, it's just like I feel like so mindless because I've done it so many times. Like I'm just shading and adding colors and just kind of mixing the paint together. And in this style, you can't even do that. Like if you look at it closely, there's absolutely no shading. Like there's no shading on the pants, there's no shading on the top, on the skin. The only little bit of shading is right here under the chin, and a little bit of red on the cheekbones, and you can't even see that. And then there's just the highlights on the hair. So it's really hard to show any form if you're just if you're not shading, right? If you're just doing basic colors. So the way to really show form in this style is really to have these strong lines. But the way to have these strong lines is to really have a couple of layers in order to find the best lines. And it was really hard for me because, I'm used to having like this type of work and then just adding color. And I really had to hold back. And I was like, no, I need to, make these special colors. And I actually made this special brush called ink that I used for line art. So maybe I'll add it in the, if you guys are using my brush, if you're using my brushes, you can download them over at my website, whyisitignorant.com/brushes. And I think I'm gonna update my brushes in like a month or something. I'm gonna add the ink brush and a couple of more brushes, so you can download them for free here. So that's pretty much the process that I use. I start off with a rough. Oops. Wait, what's happening? I start out with oh, here it is. Oh, hey, actually this is the first rough sketch that I wanted to show you. It's like it doesn't really have any eyes. It's pretty much just the structure of the whole body, right? So after I'm done with the structure, I really just I'll show you what I'm gonna do today. That's why I wanted to do this live stream, just to kind of show you how I go about starting this style, and then I'm gonna finish it on my Patreon, and I'm gonna share all the the time-lapse videos. But this is pretty much the structure, then the rough sketch, then the complete line art, which is on a totally new layer, and it has all these beautiful edges and stuff. And then I try to experiment with colors. And if you watched last week time lapse of this artwork on my Patreon, you're gonna notice that I go through a lot of really different colors, because I don't really know what I want, and I'm so used to looking at reference and being like, oh, the reference says it's purple, so I'm gonna draw it purple. And in this one, there was no like exact reference. You know, it was pretty much just me deciding what colors I want to. So I spent a lot of time looking at these artworks, you know, that I showed you of this girl. And the thing is, you really have to analyze stuff that you like, right? Because I'm like, I don't really know what colors I want to use. So I was like, let me analyze exactly what I like about this artwork. So the thing I really liked about this, actually there's another one. Let me show you. Let me show you the one that I really got inspired by. So that's why it's so important to go and just search for references on Instagram and get inspired and follow other artists. Oh, this is the one I was, you can see how similar it is. This is the one I really got inspired by. You can kind of see the colors and everything is pretty much similar. So this is my favorite piece from this artist. And I was like, okay, what do I like? And I really sat down and I analyzed it. I like the heavy lines. I like that they're not black. They, you know, they kind of have some not violence, some violet to them. I really like kind of like I couldn't really replicate it, but I like how light her skin is. And then my girl had kind of like this darker skin because otherwise it would just look weird. And then I love the white hair and I love the red and the purple. Like all the colors kind of work together and it really looks like the sky is purple because everything kind of has this purple tint. And that's something that's really important in this style is that all the colors need to work together. Because I see a lot of people trying this style and they pretty much just they're so used to using a lot of colors and you can't really do that. When you're using a style like a really simplistic style, you can use up to like 3-4 colors. You know, you can kind of notice I use only white, red, and blue, and then this is like another sort of red. You know, this is like a desaturated red, so it's pretty much just 3 colors. And you can kind of argue that they're actually super close because that's pretty much like that's not even real red. That's kind of like more of a magenta, and then you have purple, and then you have desaturated purple. So that's pretty much like only 2 colors. And if you look at Loish, which is a master at that, she really pretty much uses like 1 color. That's only like orange, and then this is like desaturated orange, and it is like brighter orange. So really the secret to all these artworks. And then you have Piccolo, which I'm really inspired by as well. He pretty much excuse me, I'm still kind of sick. He still pretty much uses that comic book style, and for today I really want to use this kind of like this bluish sky. We're gonna see what we're gonna do about that. So I really like his heavy lines. You know, you can pretty much see that he uses the same kind of like blue and pinkish, you know, colors. So that's what I wanted to tell you, is that it's really important in this stage. Let me show you. It's really important in this stage from going to line art to colors. It's really important to experiment. And if you look at the time-lapse video from last week, it's pretty much me going through all the crazy colors. You know, I tried with her hair being red, I tried her top being blue, I tried her jeans being red. And the secret to that is you need to have all these different layers. So you have the pants on a different layer, you have the top, and then you have the hair and the skin, and they'll all be on a different layer. And the secret is, once you change one thing, you need to change all the other things. And there's not really like one simple method. You really need to study colors as a whole, right? But something that I recommend you do is find a lot of references and just be like, you know, what do I like about this reference? And after I did a lot of after I did a lot of analyzing, and I just kind of gave up, and I was like, you know what, let me just copy this image, you know. So I just pretty much copied these colors, and you can kind of see how from the basic colors to the final work, there's a lot of subtle changes in the colors. So that's another thing, is after you've kind of picked the colors, it's really important to do these subtle changes, okay? And I don't know if I'm gonna get to it. Today I really wanted to show you how I'm gonna do the rough sketch, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna choose the colors. But really the subtle changes, you're gonna have to look at the time lapse, because it's really like, it takes a lot of time. And maybe I can do a whole different Patreon stream about, you know, color changes. But if you look at these artwork here, these are the ones I chose, you know, kind of the basic colors. And then if you look at the final, you can see how the red kind of became way more, you know, pinkish. It became more brighter. You know, you can see the jacket, how it kind of became brighter as well. The jeans were way too blue, so I made them a little bit more purple. You know, you can see in this artwork how if you look at the cat ears, they really have this kind of like bluish tint, right? But if you look at it really closely, it actually kind of fights with the sky, you know, because it's way too it's not pinkish enough, right? So in the final, I kind of changed them just a little bit, but I don't know, for me it makes such a big difference because this color right here is actually purple. Even though it looks kind of blue, it's actually desaturated purple. And when you add purple in the sky and then you add purple in the ears, but only like with different saturation and brightness, it actually makes the eye think like, oh, okay, this is like coming from the same universe. Like these colors belong together. This, you know, this character belongs with the sky. Because like, you ever painted a character and a background and you're like, why doesn't this character look like it belongs there? Like, why does it look like, you know, green screen? And that's the reason, because you don't make the colors work together. And that's another thing. If you look at the white that I did in this in the rough colors, and then you look at the white in the final, there's a huge difference. I don't know, at least for me. But I'm really a maniac when it comes to colors though. So I really just, I brightened it and then I added a lot more saturation. So it really went from this desaturated kind of like reddish, it became more purple, and I added a lot more saturation. So it became warmer, right? And then another thing I did is I took those lines that I showed you, these lines, and I actually colored them on top. And that's really important. If you look at, you know, if you look at this artist, he doesn't keep, you know, or she, I don't know, she doesn't keep the lines black. And that's really important, because if you keep the lines black, it's gonna look like, you know, it's not gonna look like it belongs in there. Even though actually Piccolo does that. Piccolo actually leaves those lines, but actually there's a bigger difference, because for Piccolo, he actually does all the shadow in black as well. So if you notice Piccolo, he has all these deep shadows in the hair, in the crow, in the, you know, in kind of like the jacket, and it's a totally different style. So that's what's really important. Even though they kind of look closely, this one is a totally different style. You can argue this is kind of like more of an inkish style, and this is more like a just like a animation, right? This is more animation, this is more comic books, because in comic books you have these deep shadows that look like they're made with ink. And when you make the shadows, you know, in kind of like this inkish, it's okay to leave them black. But if you just have the line art, that's pretty much the difference, is that this is only line art. You know, this is only around the character. And then this is really not only around the character, but it's really in the shadows, right? So I don't know if that was way too complicated, but I don't know. It's really subtle things like that just make me horny about art. Like, I love this shit. So that's another thing I did, is I colored the lines. So I kind of, if you look at it, I kind of left the lines on the outline kind of be darker, but the ones inside, I actually colored them even more. So if you look at the colors at the head, at the hair, they're actually way more saturated and they're way lighter. Because if you leave these dark ass shadows in the white hair, it's gonna look weird. So that's another thing I changed. You know, if you go back and forth, I also added some lipstick. And it's really important when you're doing this style to kind of combine colors. Every time you're adding a color, you should always add it in at least like 2 or 3 different places. You cannot afford to have a color that's just in one place, because maybe only if it's like a special color, because I look at this artwork and I really love the blue eyes, but you don't really see blue anywhere else. Actually, this is purple there, but your eye is just, you know, being lied to. So so that's the thing. So if you look at my artwork, I pretty much have white, and then I have white in the jacket. I have red, but I also have red in the jacket and the lips. You know, I have black in the inside of the jacket. I have black on the choker. I have blue in the eyes. I have blue in the ears and blue in the jeans, right? So you should always combine these things and really think about it. I'm gonna show you how I think about it today. with this artwork, and I'm gonna show you, you know, exactly my thought process and everything. So this is pretty much the process that I go through creating this style, and it's really fun, man. It's really like going out of my comfort zone. I know for some of you maybe that's your comfort zone, so I just wanted to kind of show you how I go about, you know, creating different styles and kind of just stealing from different artists. So another thing, by the way, really interesting, I really like the clouds. So I actually have these brushes that are only meant for clouds. And if you downloaded my brushes for free, you got these, or wait, yeah, you got these. I have like 12, I don't know, 20 clouds that are just pre-made. So even though it looks like super realistic, I actually drew the clouds in like 1 second. So those clouds are just pre-made. I think that was the exact brush I used. So anytime you're painting something, you know, that doesn't really have anything to do with that's pretty much the one I use, but it looks weird because it's a darker color. So if you're looking for some clouds, definitely I would advise you to go with some brushes. But what I usually do is I try to render on top. You know, I don't usually just leave them like that. But in that style, I really like the idea of having like realistic clouds and then having like a super stylized character, right? So I think I'm gonna do the same for today's artwork, but I kind of want to change some stuff. But we're gonna see though, you know. That's the interesting thing about this style is I'm not really sure exactly what I want, you know, from the beginning. Because if you look at some of my other paintings, which is kind of like more, you know, from a reference, like this was exactly taken from a reference, you know, this geisha. Like I knew exactly what colors I'm gonna use. I knew exactly the pose, so I could just like zone out and just listen to music and just be like, oh, whatever, just I'm painting. And in this style, it's really more about thinking, and that's why I thought it's gonna be more interesting to live stream it, because it's like it's more thinking and decisions. So let me see what I wrote down. Points I'm gonna cover today. This style, covered it. Process, I covered it. References. Yeah, I have all these references. You know, again, this is from Moon Vika. I think her Instagram. This is Piccolo. This is just a reference that I found on Pinterest. This is Magdalena Dimova, I think. This is Loish. And then this I found on Pinterest as well. It's really this beautiful kind of comic book style. And I added it just because I like the background. The back of the character. And I kind of like the, you know, I think it's a little bit too messy. I like the vibe of the piece, but it's not one of my favorites because it kind of has this weird shading. I mean, it's cool by itself, but it's not really what we're going to be doing today. I just kind of like the vibe, so you know, I like to keep it on the side. So I'm gonna keep keeping most of these on my second monitor. I just kind of wanted to show you what I'm gonna be looking at while I paint. So this is pretty much it. This is the reference. These are kind of like the inspirations. So I'm gonna take a quick break just to kind of like relax for a couple of minutes, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna start out with a sketch. We're gonna warm up actually because I haven't drawn today. So I'm gonna pull out some references, and I'm gonna show you how to warm up, how to get your hand ready, and then we're gonna do the gesture sketch, and then we're gonna get into some colors and some color decisions. It's really like a more of a messy style. It's really, you know, kind of mind blowing because, you know, if you look at this artwork and then you look at this, you might be thinking, this is gonna sound really ridiculous, by the way, but you might be thinking, oh, actually this took you like 2 hours and this took you like 6 hours. Like you think this actually took me way more time than the other one, right? But you'd be fucking wrong, because the geisha thing took me like, I think 3-4 hours, and then this took me like 6 probably. So the tricky thing about this style is that there's a lot of more thinking, again, you know, a lot more decisions. So you really got to be patient, you know, you can't really rush this. With this style, you can just kind of be like, okay, let me just paint faster. But this style is more about, you know, execution and thought process. And I've also, you know, I've done only a couple of these paintings, and I've done like hundreds of these, so you can't really compare them. But anyway, I hope this was useful. I just really, I don't know, I love when I look at other people's tutorials. I love seeing their mindset and kind of like looking behind, you know, what they're thinking about, and kind of like the whole thing, because, you know, you were gonna see on my Patreon I have all these time lapses, you know, it doesn't really matter. So it's more about the mindset. So thank you so much for staying with me. I'm gonna go take a 2-3 minute break, and I'm gonna be back, and we're gonna get into it. I love you. I'll be right back. All right, we back, man. We back. I'm sorry. I just need to kind of, you know, let it meditate for a couple of minutes, and I'm here now. Let me put on a timer, 32 minutes. So the live stream is gonna be an hour. So let's get to some warming up. Before, especially doing, before doing this style, you really need to warm up with a couple of sketches just so you can kind of get into the zone of sketching. I love when people, they're like, oh, I'm just gonna draw, and they just start drawing. It's kind of equal to going to the gym and you're gonna like, let me just deadlift like 500 pounds. It's like, nah, B, you gotta warm up. Fuck, you been thinking, like, it's like you gotta warm up the muscles and shit. So I start out with some circles. I really like just kind of like getting used to the tablet, doing some lines and shit. I don't know, man, just kind of getting into the fucking vibe. I'll usually sketch out something similar to what I'll be sketching. So if I'm doing a portrait, I'll be sketching some portraits. If I'm doing a figure, I'm gonna be doing a figure. Don't really think about it. You're kind of starting out with like a circle for the head, and you're trying to do as much straight lines as possible, right? So I'm really thinking about just kind of like not even the anatomy, nothing. I'm really just thinking about the gesture of the whole pose. I'm trying to lay down what is this pose about. You know, she's kind of like leaning over to the wall. So here is her hand, her arm. You know, she has kind of like the bag. It's actually a great fucking reference. I think it's gonna make one of those white backgrounds, you know, with the colors. I fucking love that shit. Okay, so let's get to the. I usually do like 3-4, but I don't want to waste your time. So let's get to this one. The thing about stylization is you really need to think before you start exactly what you're looking out of this artwork. So I really want to capture kind of like her posture, you know, showing off her bag. So the things that are really gonna be important in this artwork are the bag and then her hair. So because she doesn't have a face, and then probably maybe the hand, but this is kind of like the order. So when a person looks in an artwork, he's always looking for the face. He's always looking for another human because that's how people work. They're attracted to humans. That's why portraits are so popular, because people just love looking at other people. As much as you say you hate people, you love looking at people. You know, that's just in your nature. So that's why people prefer characters over to landscapes. You know, so this is gonna be because it's in, you know, it's in the back, like it's her back. You won't really be able to see her face. So that's why the bags are gonna be the number one thing that's gonna be important in this artwork, because it's the only thing that kind of has a face. And then her hair is really important as well. You know, it has all these crazy colors that I kind of want to keep, but I'm still not sure. I really like the gradient. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a gradient going from like blue to red, kind of with purple in the middle. I really like her haircut. We're definitely gonna keep that. I really like her jacket, but I don't think I'm gonna draw all these silly things in the back, like the Pooh Bear and everything. I really want to keep it. That's another thing. Like, you really want to keep only the important things in this style. You know, you can kind of notice how I stylized the jacket in this artwork. Like, if you look at the main reference on my Patreon, like, you'll notice how it's like the jacket has all these stripes and all these different colors, and I was like, nah, we need only 2 colors in this jacket, otherwise it's just gonna look goofy, right? So before you start, you know, you can kind of see how the hoodie has a totally different color than other things, because it's actually a sweatshirt on the bottom. So it's really she's wearing a t-shirt and then a sweatshirt and then a jacket. But what I'm probably gonna do, I still haven't decided, is I'm actually gonna do the hoodie in the color of the sleeves. So it really, again, it's all about making things look like they belong together. For example, the white of the bear, really, if you just make it the same color as the white of the sleeves, it's gonna look like 100 times better, right? So these are kind of like some mental notes that I'll make to myself before I even start. So what we're really looking at this artwork is a gradient, you know, with some crazy colors for the hair. Then a really cute backpack, and you kind of have to, I'll think about exactly what I'm gonna leave. I really like the big bear. I really love this sign saying honey. I think it's cute. I don't know about this little thing. I'll probably not add it. I love the big sleeves. You know, you can kind of see her skinny legs, and then you have these big ass sleeves. You know, it creates some contrast, like a bubble jacket. And then the hand, and then kind of like the what you call it there, the folds of the jacket are important as well. So really, these folds, they're not gonna contain any shadows, I mean, in this style. So they're pretty much gonna be, you're gonna need to draw them with a line art. So it's gonna be kind of hard, but I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do that. So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna start out with like a simple sketch. Just kind of like capturing the pose. And because this is simplified, this is kind of like stylized, you want to make some things smaller and some things bigger. I've talked about this before. Some of the things that you need to make bigger are the head, the hands, probably, you know, if there's like a big jacket, you want to make it bigger. If she has smaller legs, you want to make them smaller. But usually, like the legs and the arms, you want to make them, you know, skinnier but longer. And then the head, you want to make it bigger and kind of cuter, you know, kind of more roundish. You're really just trying to mix That's gonna sound extremely weird, but you're really trying to mix a model and a baby, right? This is really what this style is about. Picture like a 25-year-old model and then like a 3-year-old baby. That's really the that's really the description of this style. So I'm gonna start out with a circle for the head, just a simple circle. I really like adding these two things for the hair buns. Then I'm starting out with a middle line, kind of like getting around to the neck. It's really important when you're drawing the neck, especially from the back view, to really show exactly how the neck connects to the hair, right? You can kind of see it in here with the hair. Is it really like picture as if the head is like a circle, and then you have the head kind of just like just going inside, right? If this is the neck, it's like what you call that, by the way? I'm really bad with descriptions and shit. If this is like one of those forms that looks like a tube, if this is like if the neck is a tube and then the head is a sphere, imagine if the tube is going inside the sphere, right? This is really what structure is all about. It's all about you just simplifying form. So when you simplify a head, it's gonna look like a sphere. When you simplify the neck, it's gonna look like a tube, right? That sounds extremely weird. Then you have the ears. Don't forget those because they're important just to kind of show proportion and stuff. Then you're gonna have a little bit of the face kind of showing to the side. Again, I'm really thinking right now, I'm not thinking about any details. You can kind of see how I pretty much did the ear with just one brush stroke, and then I did the face with another brush stroke. So it doesn't even matter, but it's all about you just simplifying things. So after I have the head kind of sketched out, I'm starting out with the main body. So usually I'll just kind of do like a basic line just to kind of see exactly what the flow of the body is. So if you notice, there's a little bit of a curvature, and you actually want to exaggerate that because let me show you. If you just do it like a straight line, because normally people think that when people are standing, it's just a straight line. But if you draw a straight line, it's gonna look like a robot. So you always want to push it further than it looks like, right? So it's actually gonna be a little bit curved. She's actually gonna be a little bit to the side. So she's gonna have her hand kind of raised up, because she's pointing in the back, right? So you actually want to, even though her shoulders look they're on one exact line, you actually want to exaggerate it. So what happens, you can do the pose yourself. What happens when you actually curve your back and you actually show to the back with your thumb? What happens is your shoulder is actually raised up and the other one goes lower, and it actually goes to the curvature like that, right? It goes like that. I look like a stripper right now and it's extremely goofy, but I swear this is really important. So this is exactly what we're gonna draw. So this one's shoulder is gonna be actually raised, and then this one is gonna be lower, right? And it's gonna be really subtle, but that's the thing, is like these subtle things is what differentiates, oh, that's such a complicated word, a beginner and an advanced person. Because I don't want to call myself advanced because that sounds self-centered, but I am self-centered and arrogant. But if you look at the shoulders in here, you might think they're kind of straight, right? But there's actually this shoulder, her left shoulder, is actually way higher than the right shoulder, and you can't even see the right shoulder. It's really like a trick that kind of like this pose looks straight, but if you actually draw the anatomy, if you look at my rough sketch, it's actually, you can see how curved her body is. And that's another thing, is that the more details that you add, the less it's gonna look like it's it's actually curved. So in the beginning of the sketch, in the rough sketch, you might notice how it's actually way more curved. And then if you look at the final product, because there's lighting, and actually there's not a lot of lighting, but there's colors and all this confusing stuff, it looks like it's straight, but it's actually not straight. It's really curved, right? So my point is, every time you're drawing, I'm getting hot from too much talking. Every time you're drawing like the hands or the arms or the body, you really need to be thinking about, where is this curved? Is it going to the right? Is it going to the left? And you really need to exaggerate it, right? So do that shit you know, kind of like copy the pose. I actually did this pose, this one. I actually did it, you know, before I was drawing. I was kind of just standing like that. I really look like a stripper now. Uh, so I was doing like that, and you can kind of see how my shoulder goes, you know, higher than the other one, right? So this is kind of like just something to kind of keep in mind. So this shoulder is gonna be higher than this one, right? Gonna be higher than this one, and maybe we can even raise her hand a little bit. You know, I think it's like it's too lazy right now. She kind of looks like she's posturing. You know, if you actually raise her hand a little bit, it's gonna look more exciting. I don't know. It kind of actually, you know what? Uh, Actually, there's a counter argument, which is weird because I'll just kind of blow the whole 5 minutes that I was talking about. But if you raise her, you know, if you raise her whole arm like that, then you can bring this shoulder down. But if you actually bring her head a little bit down, it's actually gonna bring this shoulder down because she's actually going with the other one. So that's the thing, is that it's pretty much like a coin. You know, there's always two sides to it. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to get stuck in the middle. So if you have like something raised, you know, a little bit higher than something else, you either want to push this one up or you want to push this one down, you know, or you want to switch them. But you have to do something. You can't leave them just being like 50-50, because otherwise it's just gonna look boring, right? The purpose of all this art is to make things more interesting, and the way to make things more interesting is to add contrast. So you either have to decide, I still haven't decided, you kind of have to look at it. Do I want this shoulder to be, you know, higher than this one, or do you want the opposite? So if you want her left shoulder to be higher, let me sketch it out. You're gonna have the right one go lower, and her hand then is gonna be really fucking low, right? This looks weird, but it's important to sketch out all these decisions, just kind of like picture them and decide, do you want it to be higher or do you want it to be lower, right? And this is gonna, you know, like this is gonna be the tone of the whole pose. Like this is what's gonna dictate the whole pose, right? That's why the shoulders are so important. So even though this will look like nothing like the last sketch that you're gonna see in the final sketch, it's really important to decide it now. She actually looks like, yay, yay. But I still can't decide though. You know what we're gonna do? Let's draw out the backpack. Let's draw out the backpack and the whole pose, and then we're gonna decide, do I want it to be kind of higher? I really want kind of like a more relaxed pose, but the one of the hardest things to do actually is to draw a relaxed, interesting pose. Because especially if you're a beginner, every time you have like a relaxed pose, you're just gonna draw it like a robot. You know, it's gonna have zero emotion. That's why if you notice, if you've ever been to figure drawing classes, especially if you're like a beginner, they're actually gonna make the model, you know, be more interesting. They're gonna make him do all these dynamic, you know, poses, just because it's easier to draw like a more dynamic pose than it is to draw a more boring pose. So the more advanced that you become, the more you're gonna be able to make these boring poses actually look interesting. So there's the honey, there's the bottom of the jacket, and then kind of have to show her legs. I actually want to show a little bit more of her legs. Dude, this looks really fucking ugly. I promise to you, this is not gonna be the final product. I hope it not, but because I'm gonna lose patrons and shit. But actually, there's the hoodie as well. So now that we have that, I'm actually gonna copy her hand. I'm just gonna erase this. I'm gonna copy the hand. And see what happens if, by the way, if you bring both of the shoulders up, she's gonna look like a mob boss. She's gonna look like one of those huge guys that are just like, yeah, fuck you won't, right? So that's why it's important to bring one of the shoulders down. You know, you can't have both of the shoulders up. So, you know what? I actually like the one with a hand actually going the other way, actually going down. I'm sorry, I'm such a fucking hypocrite. I was talking so much about this shit, and actually, what's gonna happen is the curvature of the back is gonna change a whole lot more. It's actually gonna look more like an S curve. So because she actually has her hand, you know, a little bit down, she's gonna have her other shoulder up, right? So when if you kind of do it in front of the mirror, I've done this like 100 times. If you have this shoulder up, there's actually gonna be an S curve through your back, right? And you kind of have to feel it just so you can kind of draw it. So the S curve is actually gonna be that way because you have this shoulder going up and this one going down. So it's actually gonna look like the back is gonna be like that, and it's actually showing that way, right? So this is more like a pinch, and then this is more like that, right? If you look at wait, let me explain to you something. If you look at the body, right, let's say you have the neck here and you have the torso, and you have no, you have the whatever the fuck, the torso, and then you have, what is it even called, whatever, man. This is the pelvis, right? So if you have the pelvis and the torso, and you actually rotate the torso to this side, what happens, let me draw it this like 3 times, and I'm gonna show you. Oh, this is so weird. I swear this is really important though, even though it looks like it's not important. I swear it is. Let me merge all of these. So if you move this torso to the right, and this one is straight, and then you move this one to the left. Actually, you know what? Let's move this one to the left. So what's gonna happen? I know this is like the worst drawing ever, but it's just like a diagram. So if you have the back, the spine going like that, there's gonna be an S curve here, and then there's gonna be an S curve there, right? And then this one is gonna be straight, right? So there's gonna be a pinching motion right here, and then there's gonna be a pinching motion right there. So every time there's a pinching motion, the curve is gonna go that way, right? So the pinching motion, imagine if this is an arrow and it's really just showing where, you know, the S curve is coming, right? It's coming that way, and then it's coming that way. So then there's gonna be a pinch, and then there's gonna be a stretch, right? So if this is pinched, you know, imagine if the head of the person, and this is the head of the person, there's gonna be a pinch here, and then there's gonna be a straight, you know, like a curved line here, but it's not gonna be pinched, right? So I don't know if that made any fucking sense. And the way to apply that is, that's why this shoulder is raised like that, and actually the curve of the back is gonna be going like that. And that's why I showed you in the first one, dude, she really looks like a Godzilla right now. That's why I showed you that in the first sketch, it was actually going the opposite way. So it's really important, if you switch the arms, you know, you kind of have to switch the whole spine curve. Anyway, I know this is way too complicated, and it's gonna look nothing like, you know, the final product, and you might be like, what is this angel about? What is Angel even talking about? You know, why? Like, I'm sure you didn't think about curvature of the back and all this weird shit when you were drawing this. Like, it looks like you just draw a bunch of lines. But I swear, man, this is why people say the fundamentals are so important, and anatomy and all this shit, because it actually is something that you can't even see, you know. In the final product, you just see like these 3-4 lines, you know. If you look at it, like, there's really like one line here, one line there, one line here, right? There's not a lot of lines, but actually to get to this point, you really need to understand the whole body. That's why it's easier to do more like painterly and more realistic styles than it's actually easier to do stylized. That's why I always used to think that, like, why does artists like Piccolo get a lot of likes when they're doing like this really simple style? Because I was really into realistic drawing, and I was like, man, why don't people like give more likes to realistic drawing? And because when you actually get into drawing itself, you realize this stylized shit is actually way harder than realistic drawing, because you need to, through a couple of lines and through a couple of colors, you really need to actually show a lot of form and a lot of information, you know, all the details. And I'm gonna start off with something a little bit more detailed, right? So after I'm done with the first the first layer of the sketch. Now I'm really just rotating stuff. I'm trying to make them look more like the reference, you know, because usually my first sketch is gonna look, you know, despite what you might be thinking about, that I don't do any bad sketches or anything, you're always gonna do horrible, fucking horrible sketches, right? So it's all about you just erasing them and just starting them again, right? So I'm just erasing, you know, pretty much all the information. I'm just leaving like little marks just to kind of, you know, see the ghost lines. So if you look at it right here, it's really important to find places that you can actually look at the proportion at. So I'm using the ending of the sleeves just to kind of see how the whole sleeve connects to the jacket. So you're gonna have like an S curve coming from here. And that's another thing I've always talked about, is the secret to stylized painting is really S curves, because S curves show action, they're more interesting. And this is a straight curve. This is, I'm sorry, my fucking nose is filled up. I'm still kind of sick. So this is a straight line, this is a curved line, and then this is an S curve, right? And S curves are really just again, they show action, they show motion, you know, they're just more interesting to the eye. So anytime I'm able to add S curves, I'll be doing that. So you have the sleeve, then you have this, kind of like that. You have the, you know, she's kind of pinching a little bit, so there's gonna be these folds in the back. Then you have these big ass sleeves, and then you have this. You have the other sleeve. You're gonna be, oh, these folds are gonna take so much time to draw, you know. And then probably gonna raise the hand a little bit. A secret to drawing hands, especially if they're in a fist, is really to break them down as a rectangle. So I'm pretty much gonna draw a rectangle, and then I'm just gonna add the thumb to the side. And then this is the way to simplify it. And then you just need to draw the fingers in the middle with just a couple of lines, and then you just need to erase the space between the knuckles or the fingers, depending on, you know, what you're looking for. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it like a rectangle. So this is gonna be the hand, and then there's the sleeve on top. By the way, I love bubble jackets that have like long ass sleeves, and they really cover, you know, the hand up until the knuckles. I don't know, it kind of looks cute and shit. It kind of looks like an anime, so I'm definitely gonna do that. You have a bubble jacket. By the way, a secret to drawing, you know, whether it's bubble jacket or even muscles, let me show you that. It's called avoiding the snowman effect. Okay, I know it sounds like I just made that up, but I swear I did it. So if you have a snowman, right? If you have a snowman, like just a couple of balls, that's the snowman effect. So let's say you have the shoulder. If you think this is like an arm of a person, and then this is like the elbow, the shoulder, the snowball effect is really just this, not the snowball, the snowman is really, you're just drawing the shoulder here, and then you're drawing the biceps here, and you have the forearm here. It really looks like 3 fucking circles, right? And it really looks like, wait, let me erase this. Really looks like you're just going out, you're coming in, you're going out, and then you're coming in, you're going out. Like, you ever seen artists that draw like muscles, like big ass strong people, like, oh, it's coming in, it's coming out? And the way to avoid that and actually make it more interesting is to actually move around those curves. Like, the problem with this is that the same curve that you have on the left side is the exact same curve on the right side. So if you look at it, it pretty much looks like a straight line. And the way to avoid that is actually to have this one kind of going up, and then this one kind of going down. So it really, it's not a straight line anymore, but it's actually kind of curved. So if this is an arm, you're gonna have the shoulder coming like that, and then you're gonna have the biceps kind of coming like that, and then you have the forearm kind of like that, right? Look how much more that looks like an arm, even though it still looks like circles. If you really look at where it meets each other, it doesn't meet at the same place where, you know, if you drew a circle. So that's my point. I don't know, I'm so fucking insecure when I'm explaining some shit, because I'm still, you know, I'm still like a beginner to all these tutorials and shit, so I don't know if my explanations make any fucking sense, but this is really what I'm thinking about. So I'm gonna get better though. I will. So the same way I got better with painting, I'm gonna get better with teaching. It's all about the fucking practice, man. That's why I'm telling you motherfuckers, man. You just gotta practice, whatever it is. Whatever it's portraits, whatever it's landscapes, you just sit down and fucking do landscapes. You wanna sit down and do portraits, you sit down and do portraits. There's no fucking secret. The same way for fucking teaching. I know it sounds hypocritical because I don't understand teaching, but you just sit down and you fucking teach, right? This is how you get better at teaching. This is how you get better at anything. You just fucking sit down and do it. You make a bunch of mistakes that you're not supposed to. That's why all my Patreon videos are unlisted, and you get better. You know, that's the fucking secret. Is really to make things that make you better. You know, even though I'm doing this Patreon stream for my listeners and for my patrons and really to get you guys better, I'm really getting more out of this than you are, as weirdly as it sounds, man. I'm really you just gotta do shit that makes you better. I don't know, that was a weird rant. I'm just trying to avoid more time about talking about this artwork. So yeah, we're gonna have the bag. She still kind of looks like a thug, but I guess I'm gonna have to finish that later. I'm gonna have to change that later because we're running out of time, and I really kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the colors, but I don't know if I'm gonna have the time. But yeah, we're gonna mention some colors though. So let's just make like really like a simplistic sketch, just so I can kind of get into the colors. Boy, this looks fucking horrific. It really does. I'm gonna make it prettier though. I'm gonna make it prettier. I think it's more important for you to understand, you know, the concept behind it and kind of like what this style is all about. Because afterwards, when you look at it at the live stream, you know, it's gonna be easier for you to understand. So let's pretend that this is a good sketch. Okay, let's pretend that this is a good sketch. And let's pretend that it's actually time to go into the colors. You know, let's pretend to do that. I know it takes a lot of imagination, but let's pretend to do that. So after I'm done with the sketch, which I'm really far from, I'm kind of gonna start out with the colors. And really the secret to all these simplistic colors and everything is really to know what you're looking for and to start out with the one thing that you're sure about. Because if you remember what I talked in the beginning of the stream, when I started out with this artwork, I wasn't sure about the hair, about any of the colors, right? The only thing I was sure about was the background. And sometimes there's things like I'm sure about the skin, or I'm sure about the clothes. Like you need to start out with something that you're really sure about. And for this artwork, I think it's the sky. So I really want this more bluish sky with maybe some pink coming from the bottom, but I don't want it to have I don't want it to be super purple. I want it to kind of have it more bluish, you know. And I mean, I don't want to sound too sure because I might change my opinion, and I don't want to be one of those people, oh, I'm so sure of this, and then the next moment I fucking change it. But let's just see what will happen, you know. This is kind of like my theory about all this stuff is that I'm just experimenting, right? So let's experiment with like a blue background, kind of having some pink on the bottom. I'm using the gradient tool, which if you're using my shortcuts, which I don't see why you shouldn't be using them, you press H and then you create the gradient. So I'm getting kind of like a purplish vibe from the bottom, and then from the top I want a little bit more blue, and then maybe some clouds and stuff. I want to add some interesting shapes like little stars and shit, but that's gonna be for later though. Just kind of like this is really like a thumbnail, the thing that I'm doing right now. It's kind of like just you're kind of like doing the final product before you actually start it, so you can kind of just imagine, you know, what you're gonna be working on. Let me stop the timer because it's gonna ring in 20 seconds. So okay, it's been an hour, but I'm gonna keep going just so I can explain some things about the colors though. And you're gonna see people kind of doing thumbnails for landscapes, because a landscape is such a complicated thing. You really need to start out with like a more basic approach, right? So that's pretty much what we're doing right now. I'm not trying to be precise. Probably all these layers that I'm using right now, let me move this my face. All these fucking layers that you see right here, I'm probably just gonna delete them later and start from scratch. But I really wanted to show you you know, how I go about doing things. Well, why don't you just start, Angel? Why do you keep talking about it? Okay, I'm gonna start. So I'm thinking maybe her hair, maybe purple or something. So I'm really trying to connect all these colors. So if you have blue on the top and then you have pink on the bottom, I think it's gonna be a great effect to kind of have more like a purple hair and then have more of a bluer jacket, because actually that's gonna show the contrast. So you have blue on the background on the top, and then you have blue on the bottom of the jacket, and then you have purple on the bottom of the background, and then you're gonna have purple on the top in the hair, right? You're really just trying to show contrast here, right? You're really just, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just kind of experimenting. So I'll kind of like, if I have purple in the hair, you're gonna have like a blue jacket. So let's say the jacket is kind of bluish. I really like the combination between the white. Maybe we can do the bag to have a purple vibe as well, but we're gonna see though. So I really like what they did with the blue jacket with the white sleeves. So I'm gonna copy that. So let's say she had like white sleeves. I'm not really thinking about the final colors. Let me show you the steps again. I know I'm gonna change the colors a lot, you know, as you can see here. I'm gonna change the white, I'm gonna change the red. It's pretty much you just setting up the basic color. So you might be seeing me kind of picking some colors, and I'm not thinking that much about hue or brightness or any of these things. Did I just lose my fucking pen sensitivity? What the fuck happened, man? I don't know. This is karma telling me that I should end the stream though. But nah, I'm gonna keep going. So by the way, it's really important to add that white in the bottom just to make it look like it all connects together. So I'm gonna add that white on the bottom, and then we kind of have the skin. The skin is gonna be kind of more orangish. It's gonna be on the bottom. Oh, that's way too orange. Again, not trying to be too precise, but you know, you kind of have to be thinking about color relations and all this stuff. The thing is, I'm still not sure, you know, you're gonna see me in the time lapse. I'm gonna experiment with different things. I'm now just going like with the most general colors I can think about, and then maybe I can experiment with some crazier options. And that's the thing, is that you're probably gonna go with your first options, you know. If you look at the live stream, I pretty much started out with these colors. I think I only changed the hair, but that's the thing, is when I got super experimental, when I was like, what if you make the jacket like green or something? I know green wasn't gonna work, but it actually gave me ideas about, let's say, the pants being blue, you know. So that's why you really have to be thinking outside of the box, and that's one of the few times I'm really creative, you know. I oftentimes talk about how I don't really use creativity. Like, I just really believe in discipline and just putting in the work, and I feel like, you know, creativity kind of just slows you down. So I'll just find a reference and then try to copy them. But really, this is kind of like the few times where I'm really like, you know, really just thinking outside of the box. So I like how I said I'm thinking outside of the box, and then I'm just copying the same colors from the reference, but whatever though. So I'm trying to add the same white from the sleeves onto the little bear. You can kind of see how I'm gonna be using, you know, darker color for the bear eyes and mouth. So as I told you before, anytime you're using a color, you really need to add it in a different place. So where can we add the same black? Probably the sleeves, or maybe, I don't know what. Yeah, probably the sleeves. And see how it immediately, you know, belongs together. Like, as soon as you add those darks into the sleeves, like, look at that. That's before and after the sleeves. Like, the human eye just looks, oh, that's the same color from the bear that you're using on the sleeves. You know, it actually belongs together. Like, this is really what your brain is thinking. So I kind of like that. So I'm gonna just push the colors in the background a little bit more. So I'm gonna push the pink. I want to have more purple and pink in the background. So that's kind of like the pinkish from the bottom, and then we're gonna have the blue on the top. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add maybe some purple clouds or something, just to see how it looks. So what if you have, you know, if you look at this, I'm mainly looking at this artwork. I really like the kind of like the sky. Probably have to make the bluish a little bit more purple, a little bit more. Look at that, by the way, just changing color of the background just a little bit. So what if we have like this pinkish sky behind this, right? You have like these pinkish clouds only on the top, and then you have a pink in the bottom, and you have pink in the hair, but the hair doesn't need to, it shouldn't touch the clouds, because if it touches the clouds, it's actually gonna look like they're fighting, you know. I know that's weird. And maybe we can add, I really like those lines in the artwork, you know, it kind of looks like a road. So what if we add those and make it look like she's on the road, but she's in the sky as well? Okay, I think that's interesting. You know, I'm gonna think about what I'm gonna do though. But anyway, this is kind of like the thumbnail that I'm gonna do for like the basic colors and stuff. And maybe we can have another line here. You know what? There's gonna be an interesting artwork. There's gonna be an interesting artwork to finish. This is pretty much the first stage. So thank you so much for joining the stream, everybody, man. I really appreciate you. Shout out to all my patrons. Shout out to all the people watching me. That's one person. I appreciate you. Check me out, Patreon. You know, if you want to sign up for, I have a mentorship now. There's one place left. Maybe I'm gonna add another place if this is like filled. I have an individual mentorship, all this stuff. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm gonna talk to you next week, bitch. I hope this helps. Peace.